As the years quietly stack up in a marriage, something subtle often begins to change, yet few couples ever speak openly about it. A relationship that once felt effortless can gradually feel heavier, more complicated, or strangely distant. A wife who once looked at her husband with warmth may, over time, feel a growing emotional divide forming between them. It rarely arrives suddenly. There's no dramatic moment announcing its presence. Instead, it appears little by little, like the slow dimming of a familiar light. Many long-term couples experience this emotional shift, but they rarely understand what causes it. People assume the feeling is about falling out of love, but in truth, the reasons are often far more layered and practical. Women, as they grow older, become more aware of what they need and even more aware of what has been missing for years without anyone noticing. One of the biggest reasons this distance forms is the weight of emotional labor that women frequently carry in silence. They become the organizers, the planners, the problem solvers, the ones who keep the household running. Remember every date, anticipate every need, and fill every emotional gap. Over decades, this invisible responsibility can evolve into exhaustion. The saddest part. Most men never realize how much weight their wives have been holding until resentment begins to show itself. And then there's communication, the lifeline of any healthy marriage. In the early years, couples talk about everything. They explore each other's thoughts, dreams, fears, and stories. But as life becomes busier and routines settle in, those deeper conversations often fade into the background. Curiosity gets replaced by practicality. Connection becomes replaced by routine updates. Without emotional depth, a woman slowly begins to feel unseen, unappreciated, or quietly forgotten. Meanwhile, the demands of housework never truly disappear, regardless of how far society has progressed. Many women still carry the majority of domestic duties, a truth that becomes increasingly exhausting with age. What begins as small annoyances can eventually harden into real resentment. And yet, beneath all these frustrations lies a deeper truth. As women age, many begin to desire growth, change, expansion, while their husbands may remain firmly rooted in the familiar. When one partner evolves and the other stays still, distance becomes almost inevitable. But what happens when this emotional gap continues to widen year after year? What does a woman do when she realizes she has changed, and her marriage hasn't evolved with her? That's where the story becomes even more complicated, because what fades next isn't just affection, but something far more essential. And we'll explore the hidden burden that quietly erodes a woman's emotional connection, often without her even noticing it. As the years progress in a long marriage, something else quietly builds beneath the surface: the exhaustion of doing everything without acknowledgement. For many women, the responsibility of keeping the household and the relationship emotionally afloat becomes a constant, unending expectation. It's a role that begins subtly. She remembers appointments, prepares holidays, keeps track of family schedules, and manages the daily rhythm of life. But over decades, this silent contribution becomes a heavy emotional load. What makes it even harder is that most husbands don't view these tasks as labor at all. They assume everything simply gets done without noticing who is doing it or how much energy it takes. A wife, however, feels every detail, and as she grows older, her tolerance for carrying this invisible weight begins to fade. What she once pushed through now leaves her drained, frustrated, and undervalued. And then there's communication, a need that becomes even more important with age. Women crave connection not because they are needy, but because emotional intimacy is the foundation of a fulfilling relationship. Yet many husbands, over time, slip into minimal communication. Conversations shift from meaningful exchanges to logistical updates. The deep curiosity that once fueled the relationship disappears, replaced by monotony or silence. For a woman, this loss is painful. Without emotional engagement, she begins to feel like she's living beside her husband rather than with him. She feels her voice fading, her thoughts overlooked, and her feelings unnoticed. Slowly, her heart withdraws, not out of anger, but out of housework adds another layer. Even after retirement, when both partners technically have more free time, many women still shoulder the majority of chores. Decades of repeating the same tasks create resentment. Dishes left in the sink aren't just dishes anymore. They're symbols of imbalance. Laundry isn't just laundry. It's proof that she's still carrying more than her share. Eventually, she begins asking herself, why am I still doing everything? And ironically, this resentment often builds during a stage of life when many expect peace. Later years are supposed to be a time of rest, enjoyment, and companionship. But instead, a woman may find herself overwhelmed by responsibilities that never seem to end. She begins to see the marriage differently, not through the lens of shared life, but through the lens of accumulated burdens. And once she starts noticing this imbalance, the emotional distance grows even faster. But here's where things take an even sharper turn, because emotional exhaustion is only the beginning. When retirement enters the picture, everything changes. And in many marriages, this change brings unexpected pressure that pushes a woman even further away. We'll uncover how retirement often imagined as the golden years becomes a major turning point that can quietly break the emotional connection in a long-term marriage. Retirement is often portrayed as a peaceful chapter, a season of freedom, adventure, and long-awaited rest. Couples imagine more time together, more shared experiences, and a slower pace that finally allows them to reconnect. But for many marriages, the reality looks very different. Instead of offering relief, retirement exposes cracks that were quietly forming for years. Suddenly, routines shift. The structure that once kept life organized disappears, and while some men adjust smoothly, many enter retirement without any emotional plan, personal hobbies, or independent purpose. They go from years of full-time work to long, empty days, and without realizing it. They place the weight of filling those days onto their wives. A woman who has spent a lifetime juggling responsibilities now finds herself expected to become her husband's source of entertainment, social interaction, and daily direction. He turns to her with questions like, "What should we do today?" or "What's the plan?" assuming she will always know. To him, it feels natural. To her, it feels suffocating. She longs for freedom, the kind she expected retirement to bring. Time for her own interests, quiet moments, new hobbies, even simple rest. But instead of gaining space, she often loses it. Her husband's constant presence, paired with his lack of independent activity, creates a new kind of pressure she didn't anticipate. What should have been a peaceful stage becomes a period of overwhelm. This dynamic is even more difficult when paired with the long-standing imbalance of housework. If he never built the habit of helping before retirement, he rarely learns it afterward. So now, not only is he home, she is still doing almost everything. The house doesn't feel like a shared space. It feels like another responsibility she must manage. Instead of companionship, she feels trapped. And then comes the emotional shift. She begins to wonder why she feels so unseen after decades of partnership. Why her husband doesn't understand her need for space, support, or rest. Why she feels lonelier sitting next to him now than she did when he was working full-time. Retirement becomes a magnifying glass, bringing every unresolved issue into sharp focus. And once a woman sees these problems clearly, she can't unsee them. The emotional distance that once grew slowly now accelerates. But this isn't the final stage. There is another layer to this transformation, one that has the power to quietly reshape a woman's heart even more deeply. Because when she no longer feels heard, valued, or emotionally recognized, something inside her begins to shut down in a way that's difficult to reverse. We'll uncover the painful moment when a woman starts to question whether her voice and her presence still matter in her marriage, and what happens when she realizes the answer might be no. There is a kind of pain in marriage that doesn't come from arguments or explosive conflict. Many women reach a point, often later in life, when they realize their words no longer carry weight. They speak but nothing changes. They express feelings but nothing is heard. And slowly, something inside them begins to shift. They've kept the family functioning, held the relationship together, and carried responsibilities that no one else noticed. But when a woman starts to sense that her emotional efforts aren't appreciated, or worse, aren't even acknowledged, she begins to pull away. Not dramatically, not angrily, but quietly, subtly, almost invisibly. Little by little, her heart begins protecting itself by shutting doors instead of opening them. It's not that she wants to distance herself, she simply feels she must. A woman doesn't need flowers or grand declarations to feel loved. Without that, affection turns into obligation, and companionship turns into coexistence. And here's the part many husbands never see. When a woman stops feeling appreciated, she does not usually explode. She becomes quieter. This is often when she starts asking herself uncomfortable questions. Is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? Do I still feel loved here? Do I even feel like myself anymore? These questions don't appear out of nowhere. They grow from years of unmet needs and unheard concerns. And once a woman begins questioning the meaning of her marriage, the emotional bond that once felt unbreakable can start to crumble. But this journey doesn't stop with feeling unheard. Something even deeper happens next, a realization that comes with age, loss, and the awareness that life is shorter than it once felt. And this realization pushes many women into a new emotional territory, one that can permanently alter the course of a long marriage. We'll explore the final turning point, the moment when a woman decides she deserves more. And what happens when she chooses herself after decades of choosing everyone else?